Hello and welcome back to Exeter and Lera. This video is just a general update showing you around the complete finished track deck amongst various changes to the layout. Also as well, throughout the video there'll be various shout outs to other channels as well. Before I start, I just want to give a mention to the new Facebook group. If anyone hasn't come across it yet, please do go and check it out. On Facebook it's known as the Model Railway YouTube Community Group. I want to give full credit to all the admin members on there. Some of them are quite well known and they're doing a fantastic job of putting this Facebook group together, and the creation of the network YouTube map as well, as you see at the beginning of the video, has been designed by David Jones, and I think it's fantastic. It's really pulled the community together and it shows how much interest there is in model railways. So again, just check out that Facebook page. The link again is just down in the video description. So it's taken a time to get to here, and that's simply because cutting all the plywood for the track deck, I chose not to do any of that really up in the loft, simply because there's so much of our own sort of storage bits and pieces up here that the last thing I wanted was to be cleaning the loft down from heaps of sawdust. So a lot of my time was actually had to be spent outside cutting the ply, so up and down the loft, outside cutting it, and obviously working alongside what time I had off of work was always going to be hindered by the weather, obviously with the snow and all the wind and the rain and everything else. It kind of wasn't really an enjoyable job. But nevertheless, that milestone's been reached and the track deck is completely in. So originally, from the last update, the layout ended at this point here. So it's all been fully extended and it now orbits the loft all the way round. So we have a full complete running circuit all the way round. The method of style of building this layout, obviously this was all done on an L girder build, and as an example, these new pieces of L girder along here which join and continue the loop all the way round give you an idea of how strong these L girders actually are when you've built them. These two pieces of timber, which one's made up of a 3" by 1", the other one on top is a 2 by 1. These were quite warped, these pieces of timber, and once they were glued and screwed into position, they are now warp free, and there is no additional legs supporting this. And considering that this is a 10-foot length from there to there, it's strong and quite sturdy. Also as well, the rest of the benchwork has been now extended out, that the whole layout all the way around the room is 3 feet wide. So there's 3 foot of scenic space to be building on. And my first shout out goes to Jason of Barnabas Junction. If you're a fan of DRS, it's well worthy of a pop over and checking his channel out. Jason's idea of keeping the YouTube community together, he's doing a superb job of that with his new live streams that he does every Tuesday, YouTube Tuesday I think it's what it's called. That's basically aimed at giving shout outs to various channels, making sure that people who have just joined YouTube are getting recognised, and it's a superb idea of what he's done. So again, you can find his channel, the link to that down in the video description. So from the last update, people may remember that there was originally a loop that used to run underneath this section here, which used to come all the way down and then sort of run round on itself, I think, and then sort of join back up onto the top board. This reverse loop was almost impossible to try and get all the running new lines along this sort of section, the new section that goes across the back here. It was almost impossible to try and get anything to fit in with that perfectly. So I took the opportunity really just to do away with it. As I chose to extend or to complete the circuit of the layout all the way around, it gave me the ability to create 2 new reversing loops on this back section of the layout here. These are probably quite complicated. They were very difficult to build, these reverse loops, being the fact that up in the loft, the people who ever designed the loft or the house itself decided to put this chimney right in a very awkward place. But there's 2 reverse loops on here, with the first one that leaves this end of the layout, gives the ability to exit down that decline all the way around the back and then head back up to reverse itself to come back in, and it works likewise leaving this end of the layout, heading down that ramp there before doing that circuit, coming round, heading underneath there. Now I've allowed enough clearance for trains to get underneath there before it comes back up and then joins back into there. So anyone who's not familiar with Exeter St David Station, it's almost kind of classed as a junction. So you get 2 major lines that run into St David Station. At the north end, as if anything was heading into the station from London Paddington, so that's heading down along the Great Western Main Line. And down at the south end of the station, you've got the line that comes down from London Waterloo, and also as well the lines that head off in the direction of Devon and Cornwall. So now would be the best time to show you guys exactly what the track plan actually is on this layout. So this is the north end of the line, or the north end of the station. So this will be anything coming in from this corner here is anything coming from the direction of London Paddington. So that forms part of the Great Western Main Line heading into Exeter St David Station. The layout consists of 2 running loops all the way around, so 2 loops will come into here before they distribute out into the 5 main tracks that head into the station. And as we go through the station, we come out at the south end of the station. So this section here will be the section that runs up as if you were heading onto the route to the southwest of England route, heading off down in the direction of London Waterloo. The furthest back point, this one here, is the route as if you were heading down into Devon and Cornwall. So the famous Dawlish Sea Wall, and off obviously down to Cornwall, Plymouth, etc. So the line that's in front of you, to the nearest to the camera, is the line that runs up on a incline and then heads off into a reverse loop, which is just simply the line that runs off into the direction of London Waterloo. That just orbits this circle, comes back round on itself, and then back down into the station again. So continuing on with the rest of the main running loop, there will be a back scene, which will this line at the back here will be behind back scene material, so you won't see none of this. This will actually curve across, and then the trains will actually go through a cutting which will be hidden by general scenic material and stuff. That line takes a steady descent all the way round. Before it goes down and underneath the reversing loop that forms the Waterloo section. By the time it reaches this corner down here, it's at its lowest point, which is measured at 1.5 inches above the main framework. So the incline, or the decline from the station end of it, is a 2-inch drop all the way along to that point there. Everything that runs around these 4 corners of the layout, the sharpest points, are all on a 3rd and a 4th radius curve. Trains will come back out from underneath here. This will be a feature that's very familiar of Lera. When you're coming into the Lera section, there's actually a road bridge which goes across these main lines here, so that'll act as a really good scenic break from the section that sits on top of here between the 2 regions. Should work out quite well. So from that 1.5 inch drop on the main deck, the main line itself, which is the furthest away one, is back on a steady incline and on a very slight curve. And this travels up to that point there, where it gets back up to the 3.5 inches again. All the plywood that's in front of you, so the bit where the Class 50 is going to be obviously all the sidings for Lera Depot. I'm not going to include all the sidings. I only want Lera to be a section of the layout where it features a scrap line of Class 50s. This section here is actually the original Lera coaling stage line, which is buried by undergrowth now. You don't actually see it, and the coaling stage isn't actually there anymore, but it will form as a feature on the layout as we move into the Scenics. And the last Scenic section you'll see here, I've chosen not to extend the depot right the way to the end here, as I find that the layout hasn't actually got any countryside scene on it. So what I've done here is I've dropped the benchwork down lower than the rest of the benchwork all the way around. This has allowed me to fit a viaduct in this area here. So having the idea of putting the viaduct in at this end of the station, this end of the layout, I've kind of passed this particular viaduct on several occasions, as it's quite close to where I live, and it's quite handy the fact that it also runs on the main line between London Waterloo and Exeter St David's, so it kind of fits in well within the regions that I'm modelling. So the landscape underneath the viaduct, I'm unsure exactly what I'm going to be creating with that. I'm going to probably loosely base it on some kind of ideas in my head. I don't know, it's one of the sort of things, I've got several ideas I want to use, but either way it's not going to resemble any of the landscape underneath the St Marybourne Viaduct or the Hurstbourne Viaduct. And then the layout continues round where it goes into this section above where all the reverse loops are. The whole of this runs across there, so anything from the end of here, the Scenic will stop here, and then it will run all the way along where this part won't actually contain any scenic material at all. And there's no point of putting anything scenic in there because it's simply too difficult to get in behind the water tank to create anything of any scenic interest. So this is just going to remain as it is. And then obviously it all enters back into the north end of the station. My second shout out is to David Jones, also known as Cottesmore. I'm going to give him some credit for creating or putting together the new network YouTube map that you see at the beginning of the video. His channel can also be found by clicking on the link down in the video description section. Please do go and check that out. So when it comes to designing this layout, it was quite complicated, to be honest. There was a lot of gradients I had to build in and work everything out to make sure that everything ran round properly. So as an example, from that point there all the way along this station board, all the way round to where are we, to that point just there, is 3.5 inches above the main bench framework. So to work out, to make sure that everything fitted in, my starting point was to pick out the lowest point of where the elevated sections were. The lowest point being this 1.5 inches above, which meant that once that was in, the loop for the Waterloo section was created, but with enough clearance to get the lines underneath. This puts this up 4.5 inches, and then to put a steady gradient on this, which actually the real one's 1 in 37, I think the gradient is on that line. I'm not sure what my one would work out as, but there's a 1 inch drop down to the remaining part of the layout, which is all set then at the 3.5 inches. Doesn't seem like a lot, but in real measurements, 3.5 inches equates to something of around about 20 foot. So to create an embankment, that's quite a distance. So the construction of building the elevated sections was just simple. I think I've shown it in previous videos. So it's pieces of plywood cut to the right width. These are then attached to the main benchwork and then levelled off the top. Sometimes I don't quite obviously get the levels dead right with just a piece of ply, so I've attached a piece of batten timber there, which with the one screw in the middle. They're glued, and whilst the glue's still wet, they're levelled off with a spirit level placed along the top, just to get the final adjustment to make sure that everything is as level as it possibly could be. And that's the process that you do all the way around. When it came to working out the gradients, it was just a case of find your highest point, meet up with your lowest point, and run a string line from one end to the other, and then just mark off each of your uprights against that string line, then cut them and then place them all the way along, keeping close eye on that you're following that string line, that everything works out dead right. And it's always best just to double check by casting your eye down any of the elevated sections and making sure that everything is level, because a millimetre out equates to 3 inches in normal 1/76 scale, so that difference makes a difference hugely if you have a slight undulation in your plywood. And when it comes to just protecting all the boards from the dampness and moisture of a loft, I can't stress highly enough is to never use PVA glue, because it does not seal up any of your plywood. It won't work, it doesn't work, it reactivates if it gets moist. Best thing to use is just an exterior varnish. I've gone round all my plywood's been done underneath by using clear varnish, and I've actually gone round the rest of all my top boards by just using a exterior grade masonry paint in grey. Plenty of stuff that I've got left over in the garage. So I'm happy to say that all these boards are now sealed from any potential moisture, and it's vital that you take that step, because otherwise you'll end up with problems later on down the line. So I want to give my third and final shout out to not Tony at Tony Dock Station. I've got to admit, I've followed his channel since the very start, and it's grown quite rapidly into a bit of a superb channel actually. He's well descripted videos, everything he does is well detailed. His layout's progressing quite quickly, and I think he's now up to the point where he's building all the control panels for all the point work. So please do check out his his channel. You can find his link again down in the video description. So I think that pretty much concludes this general update. I'm really pleased with exactly how it's all turned out. Everything is now in exactly how I wanted it, and it's slowly becoming to look like a model railway at last. Over the last few weeks I have been making progress on the back scenes. There are various bits and pieces in place at the moment on the layout which will be for the back scenes, and I have all the back scene material, and that's going to hopefully be the next video, which you'll see part 3 build series coming up, and hopefully that should be ready sometime in the next 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, depending on how much time I've got to put towards it. Also as well, I'm going to start progressing with track laying and getting it sort of well underway. But for now, I will leave the video there, and as usual, please do check out all the links down in the video description. Click on subscribe on all those channels, and leave your comments, opinions, anything that you've got, comments, questions, etc. Please do drop them down into the comments section, and I'll try my best to answer whatever I can. So thanks for now.